Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 177 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And tonight we have we're going back a ways, because we have more ways than one, actually, based on the plot of the movie a little bit. But we decided, Tim had a great idea. He's like, we need to do something that's like older, that most people have seen already at this point, because we're doing these newer films that kind of restrict how much we could really talk about. So Tim went back to 1977, and we decided to do Audrey Rose. And if you've seen the movie, you know why we said it that way, because Anthony Hopkins must say it that way about 1,000 times.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't say it the same way, so I'm not even going to try. But yeah, I wanted to do one that we could actually talk about, because I felt like the last few episodes, we had some good discussion, but we were kind of, it's kind of frustrating when you can't really talk plot points and that kind of thing. So I thought this would be a fun one. I'm kind of in that 70s mood, as we'll find out here shortly. So it was kind of I think a good pick all around. Yeah, and
this one, that's one that the Shudder put on there. Again, like Shudder, I swear, they have like such the lifeblood of this podcast in so many ways, between the screeners and then just some of the content. I mean, this is a movie that, I remember watching this, and I'll get into a little more. I used to watch this as a kid when it was on network television, when I was like, it used to be on like Channel 11 when I was like a little kid. And so, like, the fact that, like, and I haven't seen it in ages, and this is one that doesn't, as far as I know, just does not make a lot of streaming services. I mean, I don't know if the last time I even saw this, it's been so long. I remember, I think it used to be on HBO at one point, too. So, I mean, but still, it's like, it's not one that's in general rotation on a lot of
well, case in point,
services.
I've never seen it before. This was my first time seeing it, and I've heard of it, but it was one of those, kind of quote-unquote classic horror movies that I've just never, for whatever reason, gotten around to see. And it's probably because, if you don't see it, popping up on streaming feeds and stuff, it's easy to let some of these slip through the cracks. So that's what happened here. And I'm actually very disappointed that it did, because I really, really liked the movie. Yeah.
So, this will be a fun discussion, I think, when we get there, because I think, because it'll be Tim as the newbie seeing it for the first time, and me seeing it, who used to watch it a lot, and now seeing it again so many years later. Definitely had a different view of it at this late, because as you're an adult, you see a lot more adult things that you can relate to in it, so it's interesting. But we'll get to that shortly.
Yeah, let's get right to it. This is our first chop. All right, so Brian, I told you I was kind of in that 70s frame of mind, so I started a new horror project, but I'm not making this official. This is just one I'm kind of doing for fun on my own, because I got too many projects as it is. But I wanted, I've always talked about, I love my birth year movies from 1974. So I decided to just list them all out and just see how many of those I could knock out and see. And I on Wikipedia had an entry of about 50. Now, obviously, some of these are easier to track down than others. So I just kind of hitting the low-hanging fruit right now and getting the ones that are readily available on streaming sites. And the first one I came up with was The Beast Must Die, 1974 Peter Cushing vehicle. And this one is interesting. This one stars Calvin Lockhart, who was probably most famous for his blaxploitation films of the 70s. It involves this. I want to give too much away. Well, I guess I can't. It's a 1974 movie.
Yeah, it's 1974.
But,
I mean, if
the reason I don't want to give too much away is because it is a murder mystery. It's framed as a mystery. So Calvin Lockhart plays this hunter that wants to hunt down the ultimate prey, which to him is a werewolf. So he invites these werewolf suspects to his house, and he's kind of got a most dangerous game type setup, where he figures he can wait for the full moon, wait for one of these guests to turn into the werewolf, and hunt them and kill them for sport. The movie itself is interesting in that it starts off and the narrator actually cuts in and goes, "One of these people is a werewolf. Can you just figure out which one it is?" And it's like he's asking the audience to figure it out from the clues. So it's actually presented as like an old school murder mystery. And so then you kind of go through the movie and you're trying to like hunt for clues and figure out which one's the werewolf. And then towards the end, they actually stop the film and give you 30 seconds to make up your mind. There's actually a stopwatch as they go through all the suspects.
Oh my
God.
God.
You have to...
It's like Clue.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot like Clue. It was kind of cool. I actually really, really like this one. It has some... it's interesting that it stars an African-American lead in Calvin Lockhart, who's fantastic in this, by the way. But it plays with some racial stereotypes in kind of an interesting way. I don't know that it was for the right reasons at the time. I think they were just trying to capitalize on the blaxploitation craze at the time. But it was still kind of cool to see an African-American lead. And the one slight nitpick I have about the movie is it suffers from something a lot of these early 70s movies did, and that's like this really blaring disco soundtrack that just doesn't jibe with a horror movie. But, you know, you kind of get that in all of these. So other than that, I really, really liked it. Peter Cushing plays Peter Cushing.
Does he really?
Yeah, the same role he plays in pretty much everything. He just plays the generic Peter Cushing guy.
But is he lavender and lavender and linen, right? Or linen and lace? What is it?
No, he's not Stevie Nicks and Don Henley.
Yeah, it says lavender and linen.
It's not leather and lace.
Leather and lace, yeah. You get them all confused.
Linen and lavender, I think. But yeah, he plays like the typical Peter Cushing expert on werewolfism. And it's a fun movie. I really, really liked it. The werewolf, interesting enough, is played by a German Shepherd.
What?
I guess they didn't have enough money for an actual werewolf suit, so they used a dog. So it's kind of interesting. Although, I kind of like that because the Wolfman thing is so easy to come off kind of hokey that I kind of like it sometimes when movies like make it into an actual wolf. Like the man turns into like an actual wolf.
Not like a wolfing man, right? Yeah.
Right. And to me, sometimes it's more scary. Like if they do the wolf right, it's more scary to have like a dire wolf, massive beast thing versus like a wolf man running around with like ripped up jean shorts.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, it's funny too because we loved Teen Wolf, but like that was like that had to do it that way for the and I mean it was a comedy anyway, so
right.
But even the old school Wolfman, like it was a wolf man, it wasn't a wolf.
It was like a werewolf. Yeah,
a werewolf. Yeah, it's like it's interesting how they choose to.
I was trying to explain to my kids the werewolf, their wolf, their castle from Young Frankenstein, and they could not wrap their heads around it at all.
They'll get there. They're just getting into horror,
Yeah. So anyway, The Beast Must Die. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a lot of fun. I would say Joe Bob Tim says check it out.
Yes, and there's like I guess trivia foo in it or clue foo. I don't know.
Tim Bob. I don't know. There's definitely some werewolf foo in this one.
Actually, gotta get the foo in. So I watched one of the screeners we got that I was kind of interested in. We actually got it sent a while ago, and thank God Kayla, she was nice enough to refresh our feed because for some reason this one kind of got lost in the shuffle. So it was in that time where we got a ton of trailers. I'm still going through some of those shorts too. We have that I'll have to update on the next episode. Haven't been able to finish all those that she was able to give us, but so this one was Satyr. I described it as Tim, and now this is not a knock on this, but I wrote Tim. I said that this movie was it was really a slow burn, but it reminds me of a poor man's David Lynch. If he directed the Blair Witch, but have nothing to do with actual witches, so to speak, because unless they count the creature that was in it, but it was this really unique style, and the cinematography was so amazing, and is one of these things where I could see a lot of people being not into it due to its pacing and the way it was, like very scant dialogue, a lot of like weird imagery. Like I think that it goes back and forth between black and white and color. It's somewhat inexplicably, although there is a pattern you notice when it does go to black and white. It's usually when they go to the guy goes to his mother's house and she's recanting tales. But basically, I'll give you the official plot point. It's secluded in a desolate forest. A broken family is observed by SATO, a supernatural entity who is attempting to claim them. And so it's like, the father is gone. Father passed away, and the grandmother's starting to. She's kind of got it I assume she, they don't say it per se, but assume it seems like she's got Alzheimer's, where she doesn't remember anything. But it's like really weird. Like when it cuts to her in the beginning of this movie, it almost seems like it's a documentary. How she's just recanting things, but she's like looking off to the distance, and just the way the camera angle is makes it seem like almost it's like a documentary within a narrative film. But it's just there's something about it that is so engaging. And it keeps your interest because, it's just revealing one of those ones that really slowly reveal just a little bit at a little bit at a little bit at a time, but just enough to get you in it. And again, it's like that pattern we've been seeming to hit this year, Tim, of just, and I say this completely sarcastically, one of those feel-good movies because it's really like just depressing, and it does build up to an interesting ending. But I have to say, it's like I think the cinematography is so astounding, and just the way they do this film. There's something about it that just is just so impressive. So I really enjoyed it, and it's like I said, it's one I could see being very polarizing because like, sometimes people say like, "Well, what is this? Why is this? This is boring." But like Tim and I have said, we like a slow burn if it leads to something that's worthwhile. And a big payoff, and I think this does it well. So everyone should check this one out when you get a chance. I don't know if it's coming to Shudder or not. I forgot. I'll have to get back to everyone on that one. But I do know it's supposed to be. I want to say it might be. I think it's coming to Shudder. So, but yeah. So you got to check that one out. It's really a kind of a unique way to do a horror film. I kind of liked it a lot, though.
Cool. All right, Brian, I'm gonna let you take this next one because Brian has actually these next two because Brian has is doing a great job of finding and publicizing other horror podcasts and horror YouTube channels that you guys would definitely want to check out. So I'm gonna let him take the credit for these.
Yeah, Amanda started YouTube. Everyone might know her on social media. She's really big in the horror community there, and she's done a lot of like she's written for Blumhouse, she's written for FearNet, she's written for Bloody Disgusting, so she really knows her horror stuff. She does a great job on social media. Well, she decided she wanted to do a YouTube channel, so I checked out her first 2 episodes, and her cute little dog Barlow makes an appearance on the second one. And how awesome is that name for Barlow? Yeah,
that is
from
great.
Salem's Lot. So that shows her level of horror knowledge. She is really good, and so she just basically goes on YouTube and picks a horror topic, and like the first one she did was like the introduction to David Cronenberg. So she goes through a couple of those films that she saw of his, and so it's just really good because she's just has so much to add to the horror community, and she's really active, which is great on there. You can find her on her YouTube channel is just Mandy Morg, one word. She's on Twitter at Livin' Dead Girl 87, but the way that's spelled is LIVNDEADGRL 87, and she's Mandy Morg 87 on Instagram. So, and she's got a really cool horror collection too. She's got a ton of she's got this massive shelf full of horror movies and collectibles and stuff. So it's worth following her on Instagram too to just see some of that cool stuff she has. So yeah, so check out her YouTube channel. It's really cool. I think she's going to do some great things with that. And the next one is actually a new podcast. They followed us on social media, so I decided to check them out. It's called. I'm laughing because of what Tim said. It's a horror-friendly podcast, and Tim said, "Well, we'll get along great with them because we're civil and they're friendly." So, so it's hosted by 3 ladies from the UK. They're Katie, Chantel, and Charlie, and they kind of have this. Just a very simple format, and it's very familiar to those on Civil Gore because it's just 3 friends that decide to get together once a week and talk about a horror film. So it's very, very comforting format for our point of view because it's kind of what really Tim and I do. And so they did, the first one they did was I think they're up to like episode 5. I did the first 2, which was they did Scream, and then they did The Purge, which ended up going into the Purge series. So it's pretty
nice.
interesting. So yeah, they're really fun, and they have a great rapport. Kind of like if Kim and Ket had like a third. Kind of like it's like how well they get all blend together. So it's definitely one to check it out. It's I think they're on all the major podcast services. Definitely on the Apple podcast there. So it's called Horror Friendly Podcast, and you can follow them on social media as well. They have some good Instagram stuff, and I don't know how active they are. They are on Twitter. I just don't know if they're active as much as they are on Instagram on Twitter. But yeah, so those are two new sites to or I guess one's a YouTube, one's a podcast to check it out though. So that's Mandy Morg and new Horror Friendly Podcast.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to check both of those out. I've actually looked at them, but I haven't listened to them or watched the YouTube channels yet. But I'm definitely going to do that. And Brian, you had an update. We both kind of got going a little into some hobby gaming type talk here. First up is your update on the Blair Witch Hunt-a-Killer box.
Yeah, so Julie and I, we got so into that first series, and we solved it right away. So we eagerly awaited I think it took about 3 weeks till we finally got the next issue. But then, the next box. Then something happened. We got little Obi. So got a little sidetracked. So next thing I know, we have episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5 now waiting for us. So we're like, we got to do this. So we said, okay, you know what? This weekend we'll have a date night. I have a big Julie had one of those big like portfolio clipboards. So we clipped all the evidence there. So it looks like a real thing. And so I was like, are we going to be able to get back into this now that we did it? Well, the second thing was so engaging, and it was so like, it stimulated our minds so much that like I got right back into it, because if you like really solving codes and puzzles, then I don't know if all the Hunt-a-Killer episodes are quite like this, but this one is just, oh my god. I think, Tim, you would love this, the way you have to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
When I mean like it gets difficult, I mean so far there's about 3 or 4 different like codes and languages through this game that you have to figure out. So yeah, I mean it's really a cool idea. I mean this, especially around this time in the pandemic time, because you're limited to what you can actually do. So
cool. And then the final thing we have here, and I'm glad you put this on here, Brian.
We forgot to mention it last week.
Yeah, so Brian and I ordered this thing I saw. Where did I see this, Brian? Was it on Facebook? I can't remember.
No, yeah, it was someone in the Sammy Stay Alive group had it.
Okay, yeah, so it's a Horror Creatures Dots, Lines, and Spirals coloring book. And I say coloring, it's not really like a coloring book. It's more like you're shading with a pencil.
Yeah.
But it's hard to describe, but you got these like spiral designs, and some of them are like row designs where you're shading in different thicknesses of lines. But the end result is like some photorealistic images of horror movie icons, and it is so cool. I've been like obsessed with this book. I've already done like 5 or 6 of these.
Yeah, I started the first one, but I couldn't. I was getting so into, because it's supposed to be a relaxing tool. Like they say, it's for relaxation. So I was really going nice and slow. Like I don't care if this thing takes me 3 years to finish the book. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot. And for $7, there's like 30, 40 pictures in there or something.
And these things will take you hours to do one.
Yeah.
I mean they're pretty intense. I mean, like they're a commitment. But I think, Brian, once you do your first one and actually see the result, and I've avoided sending you pictures of the end result because I don't want you to see it. I think you're going to be hooked.
Oh, well, no, I already am. Like, I was enjoying myself. Like, it was like, I remember I was like, you know what? I'm like, sometimes you'll just get that wave of like tension for whatever reason, like maybe work's on your mind or something. Or, I mean, these day and ages, like what aren't you stressed about? But and I was like, you know what? Let me sit for a little while and like, open up. I forgot I had it because I put it down like in the other room when I was opening mail, and I put it down, and I'm like, oh my god, I totally forgot I got that arrived. So let me go get it. So I grabbed it and I started doing it. I spent like a good like half hour just like doing the first part of the shading of the first one, and I'm just like, this is really relaxing because it's just like this. It's almost like any kind of like, they say like coloring, those adult coloring books are good for that. But just something about this one, because it's very monotonous, but like in a good way. You're just going back and forth. Yeah, you
kind of turn your mind off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mindless. But yet but then at the end of it all, you'll end up with this like Tim said, a photorealistic like piece of art.
Yeah,
And
super cool.
I mean, for the price, $7.
They've actually got another horror one.
Oh, they do. They have a second one.
And they've got a serial killer one. Although I don't know.
Oh
if
my
I care
God.
about the serial killer one.
Yeah, that's probably not as.
But yeah, they have another horror one that's also $7. That is a different set of pictures, which I'm gonna have to get after I finish this one. So yeah, phenomenal. It's called if you guys want to look it up, it's horror. It's just called Horror Creatures Dots Line Spirals. If you look that up in Amazon, you'll find it.
Yeah, I hope they don't do like a porn one, because I could see people starting to accelerate their sketching, and then they're finished.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! All right.
Sorry, I had to go there. It was too much of a good joke to waste.
All right, well, let's get to our feature movie, Audrey Rose from 1977, and I'll go through the cast list and the synopsis, and then we'll jump right into this one. So, directed by the great Robert Wise. Robert Wise did arguably one of, I'm going to say arguably the best ghost movie ever made, which was The Haunting from 1963. Yeah. To me, in my mind, that is the best haunting movie ever made. He also went on to do like a whole variety of different kinds of films. He did the Andromeda Strain. He did the Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Yeah, it's like he went like he like kind of stopped horror at one point and just did everything else at one point.
What's some of his other notable, and Sound of Music, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
so West Side Story. I mean, he's got like all kinds of crazy directing credits here, but he definitely a powerhouse director, so this one was in good hands. Yeah. The other thing that also made this one really interesting is that it was written by Frank D. I'm hoping to pronounce his name right, Frank D. Felitta, who also wrote the novel. So I always love and not all novelists can write screenplays,
right?
But when a novelist can write screenplays and adapt their own work, I think it almost always turns out better than somebody else coming in and adapting a novel to a screenplay. Just personally, in my opinion, when I've seen authors adapt their own work, it seems to just translate better.
Right.
So this one stars Marsha Mason as Janice Templeton, Sir Anthony Hopkins as Elliot Hoover, John Beck as Bill Templeton, Susan Swift as Ivy Templeton, Norman Lloyd as Dr. Stephen Lipscomb, John Hillerman as Scott Veely, Robert Walden as Bryce Mack, and Philip Sterling as Judge Langley.
Which you've seen before. I've seen him in a million things. I just can't remember them all.
Yeah.
The one that played the judge.
Yeah. And then the synopsis here is: a stranger attempts to convince a happily married couple that their daughter is actually his daughter, reincarnated. And it was kind of funny that this one has to do with reincarnation, because I had just finished watching not too long ago that series on Netflix, Surviving Death.
Oh my God! Did Julie put it on after you were telling me about it? How creepy was that? That one where the woman kept like seeing, she knew she was going to die in a couple of days or something, and when she went to give birth, and she described how she saw like the operating room, and I'm like, oh my God, that's creepy.
Yeah, so that they have an actual whole episode on reincarnation that's really, really fascinating. So it was kind of neat to see this, in movie form, because it's not a subject that you see really explored a lot in movies, or horror or otherwise. I don't recall seeing a lot of reincarnation movies.
Not in the same way like this does, per se. This one does it like, I mean, and I know for lack of a better term, this does it in a more realistic way.
Right, yeah, not like a fantasy type thing.
Not like all of a sudden I am the ghost of Sheetar, or so, it's not like that hokey. It's like, this is like kind of puts it in real world terms, which I think is what makes this movie as strong as it does, because this is like, you actually kind of, and even as the tagline says it, it's like, what if you believed it, and it really, by the end, you're like, it's done so well and crafted so well, you're really buying into this. So I think that's what makes really this movie stand out. It does, in a way, it takes something that's probably unbelievable to most people, and it kind of puts it in a way that you're like, well, maybe it can, It's like you're thinking to yourself, what if this did happen,
Mm-hmm. And another thing about, while we're on the subject of Frank D. Felitta, who wrote the novel, he also wrote a novel of another one of my favorite early 80s films, The Entity.
Right, yeah.
and he adapted that for screenplay as well. So if you like The Entity, you'll really like this one as well. They kind of
That's one we got to do also.
Yeah, I love that one, and I saw it fairly recently for the first time, just like I saw this one for the first time just now. So I like that whole tone. It's definitely got that tone from The Exorcist, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later, but that kind of same feel as your Rosemary's Baby and The Tenant and The Exorcist, where you kind of have this kind of New York apartment type vibe going on, and there's weird stuff, and it's kind of slow paced, and it's kind of dramatic, and it kind of has that whole feel to it. But I really like those movies. Like I'm a sucker for those, so this was like right up my alley when I saw it. Well, I guess we'll go ahead into it. Speaking of The Exorcist, and there's a little bit of trivia on this later on, but I instantly, even before I'd read the trivia, Brian, had gotten the Linda Blair vibe from Susan Swift, who stars as the young Ivy Templeton in this. She just her mannerisms and her look and everything gives off a super big Linda Blair, pre-possession Linda Blair. let me
yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I don't know if people are gonna think I'm like crazy, but I think she was scarier than Linda Blair was for some reason. There was something
creepy
about her.
Yeah, she does have a little bit of creepy. She's got creepy eyes. Or what you call crazy eyes, and I don't mean that as a disparaging. It's a compliment to her acting.
Yeah.
But she has like this kind of these flashes of crazy eyes that I noticed, and I was like, that's what makes her creepier than Linda Blair, because Linda Blair kind of had like this little angelic sweet face the whole movie until she got possessed.
Yeah,
but Susan Swift kind of starts off creepy and just gets creepier as the movie goes on.
Even when she's like being like the normal, just everyday Ivy Templeton, she's just like that She's like that creepy kid that like you feel bad. You know, you feel bad calling him creepy because they're just being so like adult. In their manner, you know. She's like, oh, why it's so lovely, you know. But like you wouldn't expect like a kid to say that, you know. And it's like so you're like, you know, it's like I don't know if I would go as far as like, you know, using the Kim and Ket term in this case, a creepy crapbag kid, because she's actually a sweet, innocent, fun-loving child. It's just there's something about her, and she does like I got to tell you, when she goes all as we'll get to, as when she gets into her little real creepy phase, that like it's so well done that it's like, I mean, it's like it's heartbreaking in a way when, you know, when you realize what's really when you finally realize what's going on in this movie. It's actually like, you know, and that's one of the things I was trying to say, but we'll get into it a little later when we get to that point though. I'll pause until we get there.
We'll kind of go through kind of the rough outline here. So you start off the movie witnessing a car accident, and which you'll find out later on the more details about. But there's this nice family. Ivy Templeton is a little girl. I think she's 11 in the movie, and just kind of living their normal life. And they start noticing this guy kind of like, for lack of a better word, stalking them.
Yeah.
He kind of shows up, and he seems to always be wet, at least in the first part.
Yeah, why is he always wet in the beginning? Like, what happened?
I was like, can this guy not afford an umbrella?
Maybe he transported through the East River to different locations.
I was just laughing.
He had to bury him. He had to go back in and then to come back in another spot or something.
I was just laughing. This is Elliot Hoover. This is the role played by Anthony Hopkins, and he looks completely different because he's got a beard, which we later find out is a fake beard. Thank God. But so he's very young, Anthony Hopkins, and but he's kind of got that creepy look anyway, because we all know him as Dr. Lecter, so we're kind of predisposed to think of him as creepy. But yeah, he's always showing up with his kind of hair plastered down, like you said, like he swim.
And he has a fascination for really good tea.
But so he just kind of shows up and is like staring, and I couldn't help but think, you know,
he's like the worst stalker ever. Actually, if you want to think about it, he makes no attempt to blend in. You know,
but all I could think of was, if this had been made like in modern times, like if you had like some creepy guy staring at your daughter, even a fraction of the time that this guy did, like, you'd have the cops and everything. Like this father was extremely patient with this man, because I don't know. I guess it wasn't. I don't know. The child predator stuff was probably not as I don't know, hyped or what. I don't know, hyped. That's not the right word, but not as like pop.
Yeah,
I'm trying to say something. I'm not trying to say popular. It was
I know
not,
what you mean. Yeah, like
it was not as like
wasn't
publicized. It wasn't as like
it was
like their society wasn't. Maybe they were aware, but not like we are now with the internet, and you have child predators on the internet and online and all that kind of stuff. It's way more like your alertness level is way higher now. I feel
well,
like.
there was a lot more trusting
Yes,
environment back
Yeah.
then. There was just in general like there was this, because there wasn't the. I mean, sadly to say, as technology and resources advance, so does, the dark side of it all. And
Right,
so
yeah.
that's, so that's the thing, back then it was like, you could like, it was almost like you knew your police officer in the neighborhood, like, hey, Officer Mooney,
Yeah,
It's
but
like-
that was kind of a source of frustration for me early in the movie because I'm like freaking out because I'm like this weird creepy dude's like staring at my daughter.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, let's call the cops now. Let's go, FBI. I'm ready to like beat this guy's tail. It wasn't like, oh, well, yeah, that's all that creepy guy again today,
Yeah.
Marion or Janice.
Yeah, and then the typical like the police, they make the police look like not incompetent is the right word, but just so uncooperative is the better word in the beginning when the guy's like, well, I mean, is he doing anything? Is he harming you? Is he doing this and that and this? And I'm like, why do you wait till he does that? They're like making him. They're like, well, until he didn't like one of the guys says, well, until he draws blood, we can't do anything. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and the
I
dad
said,
was
what
like
is-
perfectly all right. Do you want me to hit him? You want me to provoke him until he hits me?
Yeah, I'm like, what are you trying to tell me here, officer or sergeant, whatever? You're obviously not going to help. So are you trying to give me a hint on what to do? I mean, what am I like? I was sitting there going like, because nowadays, like back then when I watched it probably was so the norm. Then it didn't even faze me. 'cause,
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm
back
saying,
then,
it's
the
different.
cops I knew were like Fish and Barney Miller. They're all like just hanging out, with drinking coffee on the side there. But like, now, you're looking at this, you're like, because we now see how far these horrible things can go. We've had years and a lifetime of hearing terrible story after terrible story. So like, yeah, as a viewer now, you're automatically like full blown like, what is wrong with all of you people? Like, come on, like the school should have been on lockdown. It's
Yeah.
like what's. Oh my God! And don't get me started on the later school she goes to with that.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we got to
school
talk about that.
Yeah, but we'll get there. But oh my God!
But yeah, that's how it was. What I'm saying because if I'd watched this when I was a kid, I would have been probably oblivious to the
I had no clue.
to the amount of danger. Like, and I think that helped make the movie scarier to me because I'm sitting here watching this and like the whole time, like I'm creeped out from the beginning before
Yeah.
even anything even happens because I'm like, oh my God, like what would I do if I was in this situation? Like this is like terrifying to me. If like this was happening to my daughter, I wouldn't
Right.
know like, how would I handle this, and like all these thoughts are racing through my mind, which made it a lot tense and
Yeah,
scary.
actually, it reminds me of a story, and this is a true story. I remember this. My dad used to live in the city after my parents got divorced, so every other weekend my dad would take the train from the city into our town of Hartsdale at the time. He'd take me back. I'd spend the weekend. He'd bring me back and forth, and it was a 45-minute train ride. Back and forth. But anyway, I remember this. One day it was a Sunday, and we were walking back to the train station to go back on the train back to my mom's. And I remember there was this old looking guy, and he kind of like peered. I still remember this. I can picture it to the D. And he pictured out and like kind of leaned and like was looking at me down the on the sidewalk. And I turned around, I saw him looking, and I said, oh, okay, didn't think anything of it. We walked down the end of the block, and I turned, and I could still see he was in that same pose, leaning pose, looking. I couldn't see his face as much anymore because it was far away, but he was still leaning. So then we crossed the street and went away, and I could still see him leaning, but like I could tell he was facing our direction. Most likely nowadays, when I think back, he was probably just some deranged homeless guy that was, the focus on. And I remember I told my dad, at the time I said, Dad, this guy's looking at me. He goes, well, if he comes near you, I'm gonna beat the crap out of him. So I'm like, all right. See, my dad got it back then. See, my dad was ahead of his time in terms of paranoia. So he was already on this. He wouldn't have gone to Sergeant O'Toole or whatever his name was in the the precinct and asking what to do. He would have took matters into his own hand right away. But the city, and also now the city, how dangerous the city is, and it's like, you're right though. It's like you look at it now and and out in the open he stood there but then again, if you look at it, it's funny. The second time I watched it, when they were standing all there in front of the school collecting all the kids, they're also, if you think about it, Marsha Mason does a look where she's not so sure that he's not another parent. Just a weird, creepy guy.
You also have to look at it from Anthony Hopkins' point of view. He wasn't doing anything wrong.
He wasn't.
He wasn't.
Which you don't know at the time. You don't know until a little later, right?
But in his mind, he has no intentions of harming this girl. In fact, he loves her like a father almost,
right?
And has no ill intentions towards her. So he's just, in his mind, he's just looking after her.
Yeah, and you actually, it's funny. You go from it's a very quick, I think, turnaround from being super creeped out by him to feeling like this tremendous amount of pity for him,
Let's talk about that real quick because let's explain why. Because what happens here, and as you might have guessed from the plot of the movie, Anthony Hopkins feels or has determined through the use of clairvoyance that he's seen that this girl is the reincarnation of his dead daughter, Audrey Rose, who died in the car accident we witnessed at the start of the movie. And the way this comes about is, as we mentioned, the dad doesn't get any help from the police at all. Right. His lawyer actually suggests, hey, invite this guy over to your house and find out what he wants.
That's another one. I'm like, okay, right. You don't know what his motives are. At that point, you don't know if he's literally going to come in with a gun and shoot all of you people.
Yeah.
But see, we're now thinking that, remember, that's the 70s again, much different time.
Yeah.
We're now thinking these days where you let someone in your home and they may never leave and they're living in your closet a month later, So it's like you don't know.
So they find out. He basically sits down and tells them this whole story. I visited these clairvoyants, and they told me my daughter's still alive. She's in a different body.
How mesmerizing is his tale of that too?
Well, that's what
only Anthony Hopkins can pull that off.
That's what I was about to say. I'm glad you brought that up because this story is so off the wall, and I would say it was probably even more off the wall maybe in the 70s because I don't know how big the reincarnation hype and stuff was back then, but I feel like today I've heard about it so through so many other avenues that it doesn't strike me as that weird. But back then, Anthony Hopkins had to sell this story that his daughter's been reincarnated inside this girl, and I think with a lesser actor would be kind of hard to pull off. But you actually, by the end of his tale, you kind of feel kind of halfway through believing that maybe he's right, but in another sense you're also kind of thinking, well, maybe this guy's off his rocker, which is also kind of a cool thing about this movie is you don't really know which way it ultimately is going to go because you don't know for sure if she really is the reincarnation. So I thought it was great that his performance kind of sold you on the idea of this because the whole movie kind of hinges on you believing that.
Right. I mean, just imagine, you take his role and you replace it with Gilbert Gottfried. It's like, it's like, the Dalai Lama told me that's my daughter. It's like, I mean, you get something like that. You need someone with the complete acting chops and eloquence of an Anthony Hopkins for that. It really is. It's such a... it is. It's like, if you just look at that on paper, that story, you're like, what the heck is this guy talking about? But when it's said to you that way, it's like, wow, okay.
But here's the other thing I liked about it too, though, is that the dad doesn't buy this crap, and I liked that there was a split. Now, granted, like most movies from the 70s, the woman in this, I will have to admit, there's a thing in the trivia where Marsha Mason says later on she really didn't like her performance in this movie because she just cries all the time. Yeah. And I will have to say that it's probably one weakness of this movie. It was also a product of its time in which the woman character was very weak. I mean, in a sense, she was strong in the point of being a very caring mother and trying to do the best she could for her daughter. But at the same time, she does spend most of the movie crying and freaking out while the men are the ones that are strong and, blah, 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 whatever. So the guy kind of takes the skeptic side of the viewpoint, and she takes the more she starts to believe what Anthony Hopkins is telling her. And there's some things, he has a little bit of supporting evidence. I would say bare minimum, because he could have probably looked this up in hospital records. But he does say, hey, my daughter died at such and such time on such and such date, and your daughter was born exactly 2 minutes after she died. Okay, that's weird, but at the same time, you could probably try to find which baby was born closest to when your daughter died in some kind of hospital records somehow, or newspaper clippings, and then go track those people. I mean, if you were really like a psycho, you could probably do that. So he didn't have a whole lot of evidence.
No, but like, you also wondered, like, why would this guy, what possessed this guy to come through with that whole story about this, too. It's like, usually, like, yeah, they say, like, oh, the more you know, sometimes it gets more suspicious if you know too much, with that thing. But then again, it's like, I guess there's no motive, because he kind of comes out of nowhere, and then to come up with the story, and it's like, and he's always kind of approached them in a very, like, sophisticated manner, I guess, as sophisticated as a stalker-like person in the beginning do. But, it's like he tries to call them. He sends them a letter. It's like he's...
But they do bring up a good point. The lawyer brings up a good point, which is, and the dad too, which is, yeah, he's starting out this way, but what's the scam down the road? Like, what's his angle once he gets in good with us? What's his angle to try to extort us or whatever down the road? So I can kind of see that aspect of it to it. And to the mom's credit, she doesn't fully buy into this just from Anthony Hopkins' story. What really pushes her over the edge is that Ivy starts having like some weird like fits where she's having vivid nightmares and screaming, and the mom witnesses some stuff that goes, this is not right. This is almost supernatural. Like, she burns her hands. She sees her daughter burn her hands on a cold window.
Yeah, and that was, I remember, what made me want to see. I know this sounds creepy, but I remember in the commercial, what made me, when I first wanted to see this movie, when I saw the commercial for it, was that scene where she went, ah, and it looked so creepy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, that's really scary looking. And so I'm like, I got to see this movie. So I probably, so you know what, it's funny, I may have even, now that I think about it, I might have even seen that. I always say, like, I think, like, Halloween is my first, maybe I saw it right before it. I don't know. But it depends when it actually aired on network television, because it came out in '77, so it may not have hit networks till a couple of years later. I'm not. My timeline is fuzzy then. I just remember seeing it, but not when. But yeah, and I remember seeing that sequence on a commercial. Like, the commercial was edited really good, so that sequence was featured, but like kind of out of context. So I was like, oh my God, I got to see this. And even now, it like gives me chills, that sequence. And also, it's like, and then when you realize what's going on, why she's doing that, that's where it becomes like, you get this like almost like pit in your stomach. Like, you think that, like, oh my God, how tragic and horrible that is, because really she's recreating. You find out that she's recreating when she was trapped in a burning car. And it's just like, you're like, oh my God. So think about this poor girl, like, who was tragically killed, is like trapped now, and she's still reliving that moment but in someone else's body. And it's just like,
yeah,
it's heartbreaking.
That's the piece I found the most terrifying about this movie by the end of it, was thinking of like this soul trapped in a body that's not hers. Like, it was such a creepy concept that I never thought about it in reincarnation in that way, because you always look at it as the person that's alive now. You look at it from their perspective. Oh, I have this past life. But you never think of the soul from the past life being trapped in this future body and screaming to get out. I thought that was just a terrifying concept that I'd never thought about.
I mean, think how many times we've seen it in a weird way, like in those, like just recently in like Freaky, where people swap bodies, and it's like, and it's done always to a almost comedic effect,
right?
Like, remember that phase in the '80s where everything was one of those body swapping movies, like,
and we've grown up seeing that as a comedic tool,
right?
We haven't seen it as really like a horror tool, but back then, like, I actually, it really kind of blew my mind seeing it from a horror perspective, and I found it super ultra creepy, because it is a kind of a terrifying concept. But of course, Ivy's having these fits, but at some point she finally lets Elliot, Anthony Hopkins. I just like calling him Anthony Hopkins because
Yeah.
But she lets him in because she doesn't know what to do. I mean, at that point, she's like, I don't know what to do. This kid's freaking out on me, and she is freaking out.
Yeah.
And he is the only one that is able to calm her down, and that's really what cements her trust in him. Is that she sees that Ivy immediately calms down when she sees him, and kind of looks at him as a father figure.
And that's the part that like just punches you in the gut in some level, because you see this girl who she's crying, and you know her as this happy-go-lucky girl, and now she's in like these like horrendous tears, and she's literally in her head like all of a sudden now sees her dad, which in real time was 11 years since she's seen him. You know, if you look at it that way, and now she finally sees him, and like. You know, and it's like, but it like, you know, you wonder what she's thinking at that point. She's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. But he's here now, you know. And think of that. And then you think of Anthony Hopkins' point of view. It's like we all see her as Ivy, but like he's seeing right through that and seeing her soul, and that's his little daughter as a 5-year-old, no less. Not even the 11-year-old, but the 5-year-old.
Oh my gosh, it freaks me out.
Yeah, it's like a traumatizing thing for the viewer, but that shows how strong it is, because it's like when I was a kid, none of those feelings came to me. To me, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's kind of a cool, scary movie. But like this is one of those moments where I said, well, now as an adult, I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, oh my god, like the thought of that. Like now, I'm not a parent, you know, I know you are, but you know, and I obviously have plenty of friends that have kids, and you know, my niece and nephew, and I'm like wondering, it's like, you know, like imagine. God forbid something happens, and then you, in your head, and you in reality in this movie, you see them again in whatever way that is. I mean, the feeling it must bring back.
But not even that. You see them, and you know it's them, but you can't have them.
Right?
Like, he can't be that girl's father. Right. She's got a mom. She's got a biological mom. She's got a biological dad. He can't just move in and be her father. And that to me was just terrifying to think about.
Yeah, and remember, he even says, he goes, look, all I'm after is I just want to be there to help you, see her on occasion. He wasn't really asking for, like, I'm going to take her now.
No, it wasn't like joint custody or anything.
Yeah, he just wanted to be part of her life, essentially, is what he said. He said, listen, I want to be there. I want to care for her. I want to pray for her. I want to be there if she needs anything. But, you know, I mean, think of it as, like, you know, the Templetons, you know, it's like, well, this is my daughter. Who are you? You know, I mean... You know, so, you know, at some level, there's that, like, you know, Marsha Mason kind of, you know, she said she did a bad performance, but there is some depth in her character that maybe even she didn't realize, you know, but you're looking at it now because you look like, you know, because there's this, like, she's like, well, still my daughter, but, you know, at the same time, she kind of sees it from his point of view because, you know, they show the mother as, you know, has that nurturing side, so she's seeing it as a mother, like, oh, my God, if this was me now. Mm-hmm. And someone wouldn't let me get to my daughter, what would that be like? You know, she could see both sides. So I think she gave herself a little bit bad of a rap, but I understand when, you know, she does cry a lot in it too. But then there was one creepy part where Anthony Hopkins kind of said, remember, he goes, well, no, it's part you, it's part me. And I'm like, well, what about the real dad there, the dude? Yeah, what's his name? Bill Templeton. I'm like, imagine he was in the room. He'd be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
May I have a moment with both of you?
This all culminates in Audrey having. I mean, I keep saying Audrey. See, I'm already thinking of her.
Tim's already in there. He's on Team Hopkins.
Totally, apparently. So when Ivy has another one of these knockdown, drag out fits, and this is kind of played out over. Well, first we got to talk about the other school, the nun school. We got to talk about that. But
oh God,
this movie plays out like a lot of those early '70s movies, in that it's very. I don't want to say slow paced because I was enraptured by the movie. I like.
Yeah, I don't think it goes slow. I mean, it's almost 2 hours, but it's not. Doesn't go.
It
slow
doesn't
at
feel
all.
2 hours, but
no.
But it's. I guess it's more periods of drama and calm, and then punctuated by like these really intense, creepy moments. And I love that in these early 70s movies when they're able to do that. And it takes a good director to be able to pull that off. But I loved that part because when the outburst happened in this movie, when the creepy parts happen, they really hit home. They really punch through because the rest of the movie is kind of just so quiet.
Well, that works though, because I think you're constantly, it's got your mind going to where it's setting you up and you know. So then when those dramatic moments hit, you really feel them, I think, because like we said earlier, how it's affecting us, and like different, how like traumatizing and tragic it all is, because I think those slow moments are letting you really contemplate a lot of it. And I think that's what was so brilliant, going back a little bit real quick to that Anthony Hopkins, that his explanation of it. It's slow, it's methodical, it's really giving you all the details, so it's kind of calming you into this, and it's giving you time to process it. And then when you see examples of it, it's like boom, right in your face, and I think that's what's so incredibly done with this.
So we just got to take a little side detour and talk about the nun school that she goes to.
Oh my god, this place.
Which,
and I love that, and I will say I love that, like, he calls them out on it. They call him out on it later.
They for some inexplicable reason, I guess because the 70s, they have a roaring bonfire. Like campfire.
What?
Bonfire,
yeah,
whatever.
with like one teacher present, and they're like circling it.
Yeah, and like and so Audrey, again, Ivy decides to just walk into the fire, and there's like no teachers around to like stop her. There's a nun screaming from inside the building.
Well, there's one nun outside, but remember it took her like the woman is screaming out the window for about at the top of her lungs for about a minute.
But she's
and a
not
half.
screaming, "Get the girl away from the fire." She's basically saying, "The girl, the girl."
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're all girls there, so the nun
like,
has to go through everybody.
Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
It's like, which one? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you?
Saying,
oh no, you're the one diving into the flames. That must be it.
Instead of saying, "Keep Ivy from walking into the fire," you idiot.
Yeah.
And so that as a parent just was like, "Oh my god!" And then the dad does call him out on it, which I loved.
Yeah.
Like, he really gives those nuns a dressing down for letting a
He goes, what kind of business are you running here, having kids walking around a fire or something, whatever he said, or lighting fires? We think bring to you for you're supposed to be like I forgot what he said.
I loved it.
But the line is so hilarious. Like, it's like, we bring to you for comfort and this, and you're lighting fires. It's almost like, was it? I don't think it was meant to play as comedy, but
No, it
like
wasn't.
you almost have to chuckle. It's probably one of those nervous laughter moments you're like, because there's so little levity in this movie that like you got to grab anything you can get.
Yeah. That I just had to take a side detour because that part like was the only part of the movie that like really struck me as funny. But so this culminates in Ivy has another just huge fit. Anthony Hopkins comes to the rescue, but this time he just abducts her. And this is where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like one of those things where like, man, Anthony Hopkins, you were doing so good up to this point.
Yeah.
And now
I committed to being on Team Hopkins, and now you've screwed me.
Now you actually kidnapped the child. Now it's getting a little crazy. So anyway, he's quickly
lies about it. Actually, remember, he's like, "No, it's my daughter."
Yeah. I mean, I can understand from his point of view.
Yeah,
from his point of view, I understand. He was like, "This is enough is enough. She's trapped. I'm the only one that can help her. I've got the only way to remedy this is to take her." I get that, but again, it's hard to like be sympathetic towards a guy that literally just kidnapped a girl. So he is quickly apprehended. He's quickly arrested, and then we have a court case, which was kind of an interesting climax to this movie. Is that you're going to have a court case where they're going to really try to, I guess, prove reincarnation in court, which I thought was a very weird and interesting concept. The mother at this point is so far gone into believing that her daughter has been reincarnated as Audrey Rose that she essentially blows this court case up. I mean, she basically essentially drops the charges right there in the courtroom. And it was really, I thought it was kind of a riveting courtroom scene.
And it's got Bill Beutel in the beginning of it, which is exciting. A real newscaster. It was really they captured that like right out of like the news from the 70s.
Yeah, I like that. And I just you don't see a lot of courtroom scenes in horror movies, and I just thought this one was really well done, and it was kind of surprising to me because I really thought it was gonna play out, having seen this for the first time, that it was gonna end up in some hokey thing where Anthony Hopkins got off because somehow his lawyer convinced the jury that reincarnation is real, Like I thought it was gonna be something hokey, like and
You
totally
thought they were gonna like
unbelievable.
pull the reincarnation beard and see that it stayed on, like
Yeah.
Miracle on 34th Street, and like, my God, it is real.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. I thought it was gonna be some like hokey ending where I'm like, oh, a jury would never really do that. And I
Well,
thought I was
and you
gonna
know,
be
of the
disappointed.
'90s, you'd actually see the physical interpretation of her peeling parts. That It'd be
Yes.
Ivy and Audrey together in the same room, going,
Yeah.
"Yay!" You know, but at least they didn't go there. You know.
No, but so it was kind of interesting in that the court case was basically torpedoed by Janice Templeton's testimony, and she's like, well, yeah, I can understand why he did it because my daughter's his reincarnated daughter, whatever, and you know, they really have no choice at that point. The judge is like, well, you know, I can't.
He's like, well, there's the case.
There's
the guy
the
even
case.
says it.
Yeah,
Remember,
I
he
mean-
goes, well, there's the case.
Yeah, so
It's like, what am I going to do now?
but what this court case leads to is they're going to try to use an experimental hypnotism on Audrey to really determine if on Ivy. Good gracious, I cannot get that out of my head. On
You're
Ivy,
back on Team Hopkins.
to really find out. They're going to do some past life regression hypnosis to find out if she really is Audrey Rose, and this is what leads up to the real tragedy of the film.
Yeah, and this scene is intense.
Man.
Yeah, this whole scene is grueling to watch. I mean, grueling because like it's like your heart is getting pulled out of your chest.
And I texted Brian because I thought this hypnotist was actually going to hypnotize me. Like I was so lulled into his voice, like I was starting to remember my past lives by the end.
Yeah,
of this.
this is like this guy is like got dulcet tones like no other. Like I mean, this makes Tim's dulcet tones look like me. You know?
Yeah. Your eyelids are getting heavy. You can't even close them. You can't even open them. They're so heavy. And I'm sitting there going, and I'm like finding myself like nodding off in front of the TV. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go back.
Yeah, Olivia's wondering why you're going, Daddy, 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 Daddy.
Yeah, it's a riveting scene, and it's really
Yeah.
drawn out, but I think intentionally so because they kind of want to lull you into it, and he regresses her back to her life as Audrey, and which leads to some tragic results. I mean, it basically kills the poor girl.
Yeah, she basically asphyxiates because, you know, she's like so hypnotized into the fact that she's trapped in that car. And they cut in between back and forth to the real Audrey Rose trying to get out of the car, and you're just like, your heart just, that's it, you're done.
Yeah, I did not
at
see
that point,
that
you
coming.
are spent.
I
You're
did
done.
not see that coming at all. Like I was like, what? They actually killed the kid? Like they can't do that.
Yeah, like I mean, and you know, with all she's been through, you know, and she was so happy, and what's even tragic, you think about it, remember she's like, no, I want this, I want to know who I am. Like she's so brave going in, and then, you know, and then she has no clue what happens because think about it, she's just totally like that was her last memory, and then she's now back to like they put her through these happy like birthday parties, and then a tragic birthday party where I guess before they were well to do,
Yeah.
they didn't have enough money, and she's just so it's like this heartbreaking scene after another where her like you basically how at one point her life was so good and it just like brings her back and back and back, and it's just like it's really tough to watch. It's a heavy film for a horror movie. This thing is like heartbreaking and tragic and heavy.
Yes,
it's you thought like The Changeling was bad? Like this is like next level.
Oh
I mean,
yeah. I don't know.
it's
We're
like-
like hitting home runs on like depressing movies, but
Yeah.
the other thing I'll say is I think if you had not had the original author write this screenplay, you would have had somebody in Hollywood changing this ending so that the girl doesn't die. Like you would have had a more happy, upbeat ending, and they would have somehow exorcised Audrey Rose out of Ivy's body, and she goes on to her great rewards, and then Audrey's back and everybody's happy again. I could just, and that's how I thought the movie was going to play out. I really thought that's what was going to happen. Audrey, you have no power here. Go back to
like it would have like they could. I don't think they could ever or should ever remake this movie, because I don't think it would ever. They just wouldn't be able to do it right. I think this was the time period it played in was well, and it's the state of the you know the people's mindsets at the time. I don't think this would play out now. I think they would just ruin it. It would come out bad. It would come out way too hokey and not have the same impact this one did.
Yeah. So I think this movie was unfairly, well, I mean, at the time I can understand the criticism. I think it was probably unfairly criticized because it does have such a feel of The Exorcist, even though the stories are not really the same. The fact that the way it's shot, the intense burst of horror with the featuring the little girl, I think it was unfairly criticized because it was coming right on the heels of The Exorcist. So I think without The Exorcist, maybe this movie would have been more well received or more memorable.
And I figure it's almost not like I mean, yes, there's, as you see in the trivia, there was some intention to capitalize that, but at the same time, they're just different films, you know, they're not even really the same at all if you think about it, other than there's like a young girl at the center of it that's kind of unfairly like attacked, so to speak, that goes through trauma. But other than that, that's really the only similarity. I mean, it's like, you know, and there's like The Exorcist, I mean, The Exorcist is like definitely goes for the more frightening, where this one goes for the more, I think, like heart-wrenching, you know. And it's
this one's not really, I wouldn't call it scary per se, but it also left me with a feeling of like dread, and like you said, that pit in your stomach and the worry and the anxiousness. I think it did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I think this is scary in a different way. Because this actually, what this will do is this will put your mindset in, like you said earlier, like imagine being a soul trapped in another body. Like it kind of scares you in a way where if it kind of like transports you into that, you know, and you can easily, obviously, you know, get yourself out of that. But you're just like, you know, it's at the same time, it's like it makes you like really think, and it gets in your head more than just a visual watching something frightening. It like makes you think about it, and think about it after for a while, and you know, and it's just a different type of thing, and it's definitely like, I mean, as far as like movies that really like, you know, horror movies that'll stick with you and really make you think a lot, I think I put it right up at the top of those type of movies. I mean, this is definitely at the highest level it could be of those kind of movies. Yeah,
this one's definitely going in my collection. Along with, I put this in the kind of the same rank as Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, Don't Look Now.
And they all have that same feel.
They
slightly
do
to it. Doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't know where that feel comes from, but to me, they all like, I'm putting in my mind, they're all kind of on the same shelf. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of the entity I'd put in there to the tenant. So it's a fantastic movie. I really loved it. I'm sorry I missed it all these years, but I'm glad I rediscovered it. I guess we should go through some of the trivia here, Brian. We don't have to go through every one of these because there's quite a lot of trivia, but we had already talked about a couple of these, but we'll kind of just trade off. The first one here was interesting that Brooke Shields screen tested for the role of Ivy originally, and because she posed for the cover art for the novel, and there was a couple other ones. A Little House on the Prairie tie.
Yeah, I put that one just for you because I'm like, oh, Tim will get a kick out of it.
Yeah, so another two that auditioned for the role of Ivy were Melissa Gilbert, who of course played Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, and Allison Arngrim, who played Nellie Olson.
See, I don't think she would. I can't picture her.
No, she's too. I don't know if you have enough sympathy for her, but again, I'm being colored by Little House on the Prairie. You know?
I was gonna say, because she plays that like snippy girl. Yeah. You know, she's too snotty, but then again, it's like, I mean, maybe, you know, that could just be because she's that good of an actress.
But then I can't see Melissa Gilbert playing sinister though. That's the other thing. Like, she's too like sweet. Like,
well, I mean, I wouldn't call her sinister Ivy or / Audrey. You know, she's not sinister, but I don't know.
You know what I mean? She's still got like a little bit of creepiness to her. I don't see Laura.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think you would have lost the creepiness.
Yeah.
Factor, and I feel bad because we're like totally like Susan Swift did such a good job, and we're here sitting there calling her creepy, but like that's a testament to the way she pulled it off.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that look, when those looks she gives, where she's like that's a tricky scene because she's like. Even like the characters on screen and the camera work make it look like she's looking in a total different direction. Like she's never focusing on like you, the viewer,
because she's got
most
crazy
of the
eyes.
time.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, but that's kind of a
best
really
way.
impressive sequence. Yeah, because I mean, she's looking there, and just when she's like banging on window like a mime in scenes, it's just like I'm like, ooh, it gives you shivers, like though, it's like.
Did I tell you?
Like
Ever tell you my? Well, I don't have a personal Melissa Gilbert story, but my mom met Melissa Gilbert.
Really?
Yeah, Melissa Gilbert was in town signing copies of the Little House on the Prairie cookbook. And she was at Barnes and Noble, and my mom went out there and waited in line, and I've got the book because she got one for me, but she said she was the nicest person.
I mean, she looks nice.
She said she was so nice. My mom told her, hey, my one of my sons is in theater, and she was asking questions and sitting there and took the time to talk to my mom and everything. Just super, super nice person, which I would hope, because I always thought, she just seems like such a pleasant lady. And so there you go. My anecdotal evidence that Melissa Gilbert is super nice. And I treasure that Little House on the Prairie cookbook. That's awesome.
Well, what kind of stuff is in there?
Like prairie food.
No, but is it like is it actually time period specific?
No,
kind of thing? Is it just like Nellie Olson's okra or something?
No, it's more like it's stuff
a catchy name.
It's just Southern cooking, basically. I mean, it's like Ma's. I don't know if they even name them after the characters. Honestly, I think it's just more like country cooking, scratch made buttermilk biscuits and whatever, sugar cured honey ham, and it's just
do they make other references to the actors, like high wheat to heaven or something like that?
No. But it's like stuff you would find in Cracker Barrel. It's got some good recipes. We've made some stuff out of it. It's really good. I just like the. I just thought it was. I love Little House on the Prairie. My brother loves Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, I used to love that show too. There hasn't been a themed attraction to it anywhere, has there been? Where you could visit
the Little
the
House
town?
on the Prairie.
Imagine in terms not I
thought you were talking like a dark ride.
No, I meant like a town, an attraction we could visit it, but it's yes, I know there's pioneer villages and sequences, but I meant a fully themed immersive one where you walk in and go to Olson's Mercantile, like that.
Oh my god, I would so if there was, I'd already visited it, so I know there doesn't exist such a thing.
But wouldn't that be cool if there was that
That would
a
be
real
so cool, like a Walnut Grove,
Yeah, no, and have it so the characters will come out, you get a Nellie Olson will be rude to you, and Mr. Olson will overcharge you, stuff like that.
No, Mr. Olson would never overcharge you. No, Mrs. Olson would.
Oh, that's right. Mrs. Olson was the overcharge. Yeah. Mr. Olson was a nice guy. Yeah. That's right.
He would discover that Mrs. Olson overcharged you, and then behind her back sneak you your change that you should have received.
Yeah. Can you imagine the poor actual bookkeeper of that attraction if that took place? They'd be like, wait a minute, you gave out 30, you got 35. Okay, hold up, 15. I don't know.
And Pa Ingalls would randomly pull people out of line and make them chop wood and stuff because they're not pulling their weight.
And I think every day when they'd open the park, they'd have the kids running and have the little girl fall in front of you, the little, and then you get to go in the gates.
Oh man, we're giving Kevin too many.
Way sidetracked. Yeah, we got to get your brother in on this.
We're the only two people in the world that could turn Audrey Rose into Little House on the Prairie discussion.
Well, it's not our fault. I mean, come on. We were it was handed to us on a silver platter with this trivia. I mean, come on. At least we didn't go into the Blue Lagoon from Brooke Shields. So.
That's true. All right, what's your trivia there, Brian?
Let me see. I'm going to pick a good one here. So, well, here's the one I kind of mentioned before. Kind of gives a good taste of Robert Wise. So it said this was his final horror movie directed by Robert Wise, who was more known for the classic musicals West Side Story, Sound of Music, but who had also previously helmed the terror flicks The Haunting, Tim mentioned, one of his favorites, The Body Snatcher, and The Curse of the Cat.
That's another one of my favorites. Curse of the Cat People was good.
Yeah, so I mean, he's done some cool stuff there. So it's it's interesting that this was his last horror movie, and what way to end a horror movie? Maybe he felt what, I can't. I mean, maybe it was emotionally draining to even direct this one. You don't know.
Yeah. This one is interesting because I kind of want to track this book down. So the author and screenwriter and producer Frank DiFilippo wrote a sequel to the novel called For Love of Audrey Rose, which has never been filmed.
Oh, yeah, we should track this down.
So that'd be interesting. I want to see the story. I want to see how the story continues.
I know. I wonder what would happen. Does Anthony Hopkins put his beard back on and dry off?
I mean, I assume that she's going to be reincarnated into yet another body somehow. I guess is what I would anticipate.
But now, what about Ivy though? Where's she going? Like, does she just off into the oblivion?
Well, Ivy's soul is Audrey's soul, so it's just the same person essentially.
That's true. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It just it's blended. That's right.
Yeah.
True. It's blended into one. So, but I wonder now does Marsha Mason and Anthony Hopkins just kick the husband out, and like they go off now stalking people wet in the East River?
Yeah, I guess.
And this time the nun school like launches like.
Well, Anthony
grenades.
Hopkins is wet because of rain, and Marsha Mason's just wet because of all the crying she's done throughout the.
Yeah, they're both wet for different reasons. Yeah, no, but the nun school launched grenades off and stuff. And,
Yeah.
By the way, an interesting tale. This is not in the trivia. This is just me knowing. But in the same year, Marsha Mason moved on to another somewhat crying role at moments, but she at least got to share the screen with a naked Richard Dreyfuss in The Goodbye Girl. So there's a little.
Let's not go there.
Yeah.
We've got naked Donald Sutherland already. I don't know if we need.
Yeah.
Naked.
Well, then thank God this one is nudity is like implied nudity, like it's like chest up, like you actually don't see any Richard Dreyfuss genitalia or anything. So. But,
we haven't seen no Richard around these parts lately. So.
I know he isn't. I'm not even gonna do an imitation of him too because I don't want it to blend into a new character, naked Richard Dreyfuss, because that's. I mean, it's already probably got a restraining order for us. I mean, now that if we, want to keep this at a just a normal restraining order level, level 1 restraining order.
Oh God, I'm just the image is going through my mind right now. Oh my God.
And he's playing guitar, no less, too. By the way, he's naked guitar playing Richard Dreyfuss in that movie. And Tim is feverishly tracking down Goodbye Girl.
All I could think of was that scene in Forrest Gump where where Jenny's playing the guitar naked, and somebody says, "Somebody get that girl a harmonica."
That's exactly how it plays out in this. No, look at it. No, Goodbye Girl. She's like sublets his room or something,
Oh
and
my God.
she walks in, and he's like. She walks in with like her daughter or something, and like he's like her son or something. I forgot. I haven't seen it in a while, but I just remember that he's like playing the guitar in the nude, and she's like shocked. So
yeah. I've played guitar before, and I've been naked, and those two things are something I would never want to combine.
Yeah, I could see that. Imagine that could be quite dangerous. Could be dangerous.
Could be. I think that's pretty much all for the trivia. I think we had covered these other ones pretty good during our discussion. So let's get to our beer pairing, Brian.
Yeah, so this one, I think this ended up being probably one of my it's fitting for this movie because it's very thought-provoking beer pairing. So the beer is called Incarnation by Four Hands Brewing out of St. Louis, Missouri. It's 7%. But here's why. When I read you all the description, you'll see why I picked it. It says, resurrected has been reincarnated as Incarnation Indian Pale Ale. See, so the beer itself was reincarnated into this. So how like meta is that, right? It says, due to expanding to different markets, we had to change the name of our Mosaic Hopped IPA, formerly known as Resurrected. Incarnation will start to take over Resurrected out in the market. So be ready, because Anthony Hopkins will be stalking your brewery. No, just don't be alarmed, though. It's the same beautiful beer, but with a new name. Oh, how perfect is that?
That is crazy.
This may be one of my best beer pairings ever.
It might be.
It says, rise up and tantalize your taste buds with our Mosaic Hopped IPA. Incarnation pours a glowing amber hue with a firm collar of off-white foam. A subtle small, oh my God. Well, why do I pick these tongue twisters? A subtle malt sweetness provided by pale and caramel malts gives way to loads of pineapple, passion fruit, and candied citrus aromas and flavors in this medium-bodied IPA. And it actually gives you food to pair it with this one, so I included a spicy pad thai, grilled ribeye, sharp cheddar, carrot cake.
The only thing that would make
so
this
specific.
The only thing that would make this more perfect is if it was one of those smoke IPAs.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, to add the flame into it. Yeah. Well, it does have. Think about it. It's got a sharp cheddar, and spicy. But I mean, it's got it in there. So.
Yeah, I like all those things. I really like carrot cake. That's one of my favorites. So that's very oddly specific. You are right, though.
I know. It's like why, it's very like they literally go through. It's like I feel like it's that like gum meal that you chewed in Willy Wonka. Like it has all the stages of the food in one thing. But yeah. But what the gamut we've run on this episode has got to be one for the books.
All I can imagine was Violet Beauregard chewing gum and oh, here comes the carrot cake.
Yeah, here comes. It's a bit hairy. It's Anthony Hopkins wet in a beard.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my god! Are we starting a new trend like candy to go with the movie now?
Yeah,
a candy pairing, a meal pairing. What is?
Oh gracious! All right, so our triple threat last week, we had a man on the ground. Steve Cohn got this one. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, out of nowhere, Cohn jumps in and grabs this.
So we were looking for a movie, and the answer was Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers. So we said this movie launched the career of an extremely popular actor, although most people were clueless to the fact. You got to watch Brian's tricky wordplay there. To the fact, due to its release after another film, of course, we're referring to Paul Rudd. It was technically his first movie because it was filmed before Clueless, although Clueless was released before Halloween 6. So some people consider Clueless his first movie, but this was actually filmed first. Clue number 2, the film got its full title due to issues with production. It was Daniel Ferrens who suggested that the film be called The Curse of Michael Myers due to the troubled production. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, in that Halloween book too. Both of the Halloween books they reference this and how the it's just that this had so many issues and so many title changes and it's just it's bizarro. Yeah, the way this and the final result. Both versions are still flawed. So yeah.
And final clue here, not counting flashbacks, this film has the return of a character that was not seen since the first film in the series. And of course, Paul Rudd played the character of Tommy Doyle, who was not seen since the original, or in Halloween, or Halloween 2, he was in a flashback. We did
like that opening quick scene where the kids run out.
Yeah, we specifically said not counting flashbacks.
Yeah.
All right, so this week we are looking for an actor or actress, so listen closely. Clue number 1, I technically played 3 roles in 1 television series. Clue number 2, they say diamonds are a girl's best friend, and in my case, also a husband. And clue number 3, I have worked with 3 of the 4 Baldwin brothers.
If there's ever an odd trivia question, a fact I gave, that's got to be it. But it's par for the course with this episode, I think.
Yeah. All right, so we have another great fan topic fan question from David McHugh, Horror Mailman on Twitter, and we are running low, guys, so start sending in your listener questions.
I think he's got some because he already commented.
Yeah, he acted like he had some in his back pocket.
Yeah, he's very coy, but I think he's gonna give us a whole upload of new ones.
All right, this one was a head scratcher. This one I really had to think about. I had to go back through my whole list of movies. What is a movie you reviewed that you think is underappreciated in the horror community?
Well, you know what I'm gonna say? This one we just discussed, I think, because I don't think you hear it mentioned enough.
I would totally agree with that. I was shocked how much I liked this movie. I really was, and that I had not watched it before because it does have that same. It kind of fits right in that lane with all those early 70s that were made around the time of The Exorcist. So, yeah, I totally agree with that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other ones because a lot of them we did. I mean, I think it's hard because you say underappreciated. But then again, it's like it's hard to know in the community what's truly underappreciated out of some of the classics. Like to me, like you and I absolutely loved the Manitou, right?
That's the one I was going to mention. Yeah.
But is it considered a beloved movie in the horror community as it should be? I think it should be. Because, yes, we had a blast with it because it's hilarious in so many parts, but it was one of the most enjoyable movies I've seen since we've done the podcast.
That was going to be my answer, only because I don't hear it talked about. I never hear anybody other than us mention the Manitou. But I thought it was a fantastic movie, and I even read the book, which I read the book after the movie, and I could not even believe the movie got made because the book is just as crazy as the movie is. Like, if I had read that book, I would have said, there's no way in hell you're ever going to adapt this to the screen. There's just no way. And they still did it. That adds to my appreciation of it, that they even had the balls to make that movie to begin with. Yeah. So, yeah, to me, underappreciated, and I don't know if this is a technical term for it, but just personal feeling, it's underappreciated if I never hear about it.
Right.
You know, if I hear about The Exorcist, I hear about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I would never in a million years think any of those were underappreciated. But if it's a movie that I have to stumble across like Audrey Rose, or I have to stumble across it like The Manitou, because I've never really heard about it, and then I absolutely love it, to me is kind of underappreciated. Now, some people, if you're very well versed in horror films, you may think, what are you talking about? Audrey Rose is underappreciated. That's one of the best films, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was like...
Yeah, because you're familiar with it, and, and you might think what I consider underappreciated is a wacko choice. But, I think these you kind of have to go from personal gut feeling. So I was going to say Manitou. The other one, my kind of tongue-in-cheek pick was going to be Maximum Overdrive, because I absolutely love that movie, even though...
Oh, yeah, that's a good choice.
I know it's terrible, but... I mean, I know it's not a great movie, but I was listening to an episode of the King Cast where they featured Maximum Overdrive, and one of the guys on there was like super defending it. And that's what made me think of that, because I was like, I'm not the only one. My brother's not the only one that loves this movie for some reason. So
no, it's a cult favorite.
Yeah.
A lot of people love it. I think maybe it's one of those guilty pleasures, but I think it's becoming something where it's like the fact that they made that really great edition of it on Blu-ray a year ago. They don't do that for movies that don't have an audience.
Did we talk about that Maximum Overdrive event that's going to happen? Remember that I texted you?
Oh, I don't remember if you... I say sometimes I can't remember if we just text it or we actually talk about it on the show.
I don't remember if we talked about it on the show. But they're having we'll mention it again since we're talking about it, but this summer they're having a Maximum Overdrive event. It's one of those I can't remember the name of the people that run these things, but they're having a Maximum Overdrive event on the site of where the truck stop used to be, which is right up the road from me. It's not far at all, 20-30 minutes. And then they're going to have a screening of the movie, and they're going to have two of the actors. I have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head. But two of the actors from the movie are going to be there signing autographs and stuff. Which I'm
Yeardley Smith.
Yeah, no, not your. No, she wasn't in there. But I'll think about it after we finish recording. But I'm definitely think I'm going to go. I think it's like $30 or something. But just to have that experience, I thought would be super cool, and hang out with other Maximum Overdrive fans, because who else is going to be there paying $30 to see that movie?
You're going to take your brother, of course, right?
He was already like, I'm in, like totally down for it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming by July, I'm hoping, I'm already vaccinated. Kevin will probably be vaccinated by then, so we should be fine. So,
yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, they said by July everyone they should be available at least. Yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping, like the way New York is progressing, it seems like they keep expanding a little bit more and a little bit more, but they're not getting. Yeah, obviously they're not getting the amount, but I'm hoping like by like June or something. But they did make, actually, it's funny, a big announcement in New York today. Finally, like that not that there's a ton of them, but amusement parks. Well, actually, I guess if you include the indoor entertainment centers, which are counting in there, are now allowed to open as of March. So it's so that that means Coney Island, which was closed all last year, Adventureland down the street from me. Any kind of those, like a Rye Playland, like Great Escape, like those parks that were like closed in those entertainment centers, because they said as long as this trend continues downward, by March it'll be able to be open.
Which,
so
to me, I'm just looking forward to Halloween season. I want my Halloween back.
Yeah, I'm like shooting for I kind of want some summer in there.
Yeah.
But because and especially now that like it seems like all the good cons got pushed back from like August on, so there's 2 New Jersey horror cons, one in September. Yeah, I wish they didn't do it Labor Day weekend, but then the next one is in November, which might be one I may shoot for. Which might, so far they only announced a couple of guests, but for the November one, so keep an eye on it. And they added Pennsylvania HorrorCon this year, in August, which had some good guests. I think Scout Taylor Thompson, and Christina Klebe, from the Rob Zombie Halloween is there. So it might be a cool con. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that one too, because then I'll tie it in maybe to like some theme park trips if all goes well. So, but yeah, I'm hoping this year is Halloween season is back and better, and we end up last year we were supposed to go to Halloween Horror Nights. Maybe this will be the year we get to go back again.
Oh, I hope so. I already told Olivia.
vengeance.
I was like, if they announce, especially if they announce a Costa Radio meetup down there, look out, we're going.
Oh yeah, we have to go this year. I'm just looking forward to seeing you guys. We haven't seen you.
I
We
know.
were supposed to see you at least twice last year. We didn't get to, after Kevin's wedding, that was it. It's like this. So hopefully we'll get to do something this year. Whether or not, hopefully we'll get a horror con in together, and then maybe and hopefully the Costa Radio meetup and the return of Civil Gore to Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Shoot, maybe if that we'll be in such good spirits. Maybe we'll have to do almost like an unofficial Civil Gore meetup too, and just to tell everybody.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
Because then and obviously there's some mutual Civil Gore and Costa Radio listeners anyway. So.
Yeah, there's some crossover there we could definitely take advantage of. Yeah. All right, guys. So we will be back here next week again.
Yes.
Send in those listener questions. Send in your emails. I love hearing from you guys. And don't go around getting trapped in burning cars. I guess.
Yes. Audrey Rose, Audrey Rose, Audrey Rose, Audrey Rose.